Hola, this is my language contact presentation for November. I started out with 30 minutes of talking on the phone with mi abuela, and then I did 30 minutes of talking with my friend at the hospital because she just had a baby and she speaks fluent Spanish. And then I watched a movie, it was about an hour and 30 minutes long, of Voces Inocentes, and an hour and 30 minutes of another movie, El Pasajero. First, when I was talking to my grandma, we were talking about when we're going to make tamales this weekend. So I asked her, ¿A qué hora vas a venir a hacer tamales? That just means what time are you coming over to make tamales? And then I asked her, ¿Qué necesito para comprar? Just means, what do I need to buy? And we talked about all the different ingredients and stuff. And then I said, Tengo la masa y las cáscaras. And that just means I have the masa and the corn husks. The masa is just like the cornmeal that goes in the husks, and the husks are right there in that picture. And then I said, tenemos que hacer un montón de tamales para todo el mundo. And that just means we have to make a lot of tamales for everyone because who doesn't like tamales? And then I said, estoy emocionado, ellos van a ser tan delicioso, which means I'm excited, they're going to be delicious. And we closed out our conversation with adios, te vero el domingo, which means I'll see you on Sunday. So nuances with that would be we're very family oriented. We're really close with our family, and we always talk, and there's a lot of us in the family, and so we all stay pretty close. And we also take care of our grandparents, which I mentioned in my last presentation for October. And we just really take care of the elderly and the grandparents because they started our generation, and we're very aware of that. And we just, just really take care of them. And tamales are a traditional Christmas meal, actually. In most Hispanic books or movies that you see, they'll always have tamales on Christmas, and that's just a staple in the Hispanic culture, basically. And we're kind of making them early, even before Thanksgiving. So we just like to make batches and batches of tamales and just give them out to people or keep some from ourselves or whatnot. So we're just kind of getting into the Christmas spirit before Thanksgiving. And then I talked with my friend Natalie for about 30 minutes. I went to see her at the hospital. She had just had a baby. So basically, I just asked her a bunch of questions and, said that I needed to talk with her in Spanish for this project. And she was like, oh, sure. So I said, ¿Qué hora nació? Which just means what time was he born? And ¿Cómo te sientes? We know that one. It just means how are you feeling? How are you doing? Because, she had just given birth. And then I said, ¿Cuánto le pesan? Which just means how much did he weigh? And ¿Cuánto tiempo estuvo en trabajo de parto? And that just means how long was your labor or how long were you in labor? And she replied, 15 horas, which means 15 hours. And of course, I felt bad for her because that's long labor. And then I said, ¿Ha tenido una gran cantidad de visitantes? And that just means, have you had a lot of visitors? And then I asked her, ¿Cuándo se llega a ir a casa? Which just means, when can you go home or when are you going home? And then I told her, él es perfecto, felicidades. And that just means he is perfect. Congratulations. And so some of the cultural nuances there, typically you'll see the Hispanic boys are spoiled and they're doted on and everything like that. I don't know why that is, but it's just as long as I could remember that my brothers and my boy cousins were just always like spoiled, and we would joke with them like they're the golden children because they're definitely favored more in the Hispanic culture, maybe because they carry on the Hispanic name, or I don't know, that's just how it's always been. So also they're very family oriented. There's a whole bunch of Hispanics in the family. We typically have a lot of kids, so it's definitely a correct stereotype. And so with that family being close, her husband was working, and he is the sole and primary breadwinner of the family. So he was out working, and he would come straight to the hospital after he was done and take care of Natalie. And when he was at work, her mom would take care of her, and they were basically like on shifts. There was just a whole bunch of family in the room, and they would always take care of her and not let her lift a finger. She was just in labor, and she had pains and stuff, so they were just really doting on her and taking care of her. So then I watched this movie, Voces Inocentes, Innocent Voices, and it was kind of sad. It was about the 1980 Civil War in El Salvador, and it was basically about the Salvador army fighting against the people, just like the common people who were called the guerrillas, like just regular people like you and me that fight against an army. So at the beginning, they said, aquí se desarrolla esta historia, which just means here's where the story takes place. And they went in to describe everything and describe the setting. And then they said, basada en una historia real. It just means based on a true story. And then one of the little boys asked, ¿Por qué quieren matarnos si no hemos hecho nada? Which was kind of sad. It just means, why do they want to kill us if we have done nothing wrong? And that was him describing the army and why they were so mean to them. He didn't really understand. And so then in another part of the movie, he said, Vámonos, which just means let's go. And that's what they would always say when they were going places. And he would say, let's go, let's hurry, and whatnot. And then they were talking with each other in their little village, and they had said, Las malas noticias viajan rápido. It just means bad news travels fast. And they were talking about their relatives and trying to figure out if they were still alive or not. And so one of the women was just exclaiming that bad news travels fast. And then they were also talking about people who stay and people who flee the country. So she said, y los que se quedan luchan, which just means, and those who stay fight. So she was just implying that the ones who flee the country just kind of run away scared, but the ones that stay in the country, they fight for their country. And then when some of the kids were going out to play, and the mother warned them and said, no te olvides el toque de queda, and that just means don't forget the curfew. Since they were in a time of war, they had a curfew, and they were really worried about getting injured and whatnot. So the mom just said, don't forget about the curfew. And then she said, in a part of the movie, they witnessed some of the people, some of the soldiers, taking some young girls, against their will, and they were screaming and whatnot. And so he said, van a matarlos, which just means, are they going to kill them? And he was really scared that he just witnessed all of this, and time of war. So he asked, are they going to kill them? So overall, it was just a really sad movie. So the nuances in here was the father left home, and he fled the country like a coward is what they called him. So then the young boy became the man of the house, and he was basically had this weight on his shoulders, and he had to take care of his little brother and his little sister and his mom also. So he was basically like the dad now. He just took his place. And then the mom had to support the family because the father left. So she went and got a job and was basically supporting the whole family and doing the best she could. And then there were some Catholic references, some religious references. There was a father in the movie, and he was very respected throughout the whole town, you know, and they always came to him to pray. And this was a sad time, a time of war, so he was around a lot praying with everyone and trying to keep everyone safe. And so they would pray to all the different saints and stuff because that's a Catholic thing. So yeah. And then I watched this other movie, El Pasajero, is The Passenger. And it was just basically about this taxi driver, and he went around giving people rides. That was his job. And he picks up this one man that is very mysterious. And so they end up talking and whatnot and just revealing more throughout the movie. So one time the passenger takes the taxi driver to his house, and they're inside his house, and he says, "Toma asiento," which just means take a seat. And then while they were driving to his house, he said, "Podría encender la radio, por favor," which just means, "Could you turn on the radio?" And then when they got to his house again, they were talking and revealing the plot of the movie and whatnot. And so he said, "Nos verter un par de copas," which just means pour us a couple of drinks. And there's also another way to say it, which is "Nos vierta un par de bebidas." I put that one in the PowerPoint because it's more formal. It's more like what we would see in our textbook. But the one I just said, "Nos verter un par de copas," is more like informal. It's like a slang. And then they were talking and having their drinks and whatnot, and the mysterious guy who's not the taxi driver just said, "Quien dice que estamos solos," which just means "who said we're alone." And he started to get all creepy and whatnot, and that was just weird. And they were talking about money, and the taxi driver was just in a bad spot with money, and he needed to take care of his wife. And the guy that he picked up, the mysterious man, he had a lot of money. He was very wealthy. And he basically exclaimed, "La vida no se trata de dinero," which just means life isn't about money. And he went on to explain, like, he's not really happy, even though he has all this money. Money is not what it's all about. And then, excuse me, he went on and said, "Escuche atentamente lo que yo quiero decirte," or lo quiera, excuse me. And that just means listen carefully to what I have to tell you, because the taxi driver was just going on and on about how he needs this money, and he's just really poor and he needs to help his wife. And this mysterious man is trying to make a point to him that life is not all about money, and he needs to listen to what he has to tell him. And then the taxi driver ends up insulting him, and he comes back and says, "Insisto, ¿qué puedo hacer?" It just means I insist. What can I do? Like, what can I do to make it up to you? And sorry for insulting you and whatnot. And then they go through their talk about life and everything, and end up making a deal where the mysterious man gives him money and just gives him like a pep talk about life and whatnot. And it happened to be on New Year's, so when they were leaving, or when they were parting ways, they said "Feliz Año," which just means Happy New Year's. And more nuances with this one is they're also very family oriented. The taxi driver was asking for more money and desperately needing to take care of his wife, and he just really cared about her and um, wanted to help her. And they talked a lot about family throughout that. And the mysterious man said, "You know, I have no one, I have nothing. All I have is this money. You have nothing without family." So they made a point to say that a few times throughout the movie. And on that related topic, the taxi driver thinks that money is a necessity. And that's true in both Hispanic and American cultures. You can't really get anywhere without money, and people will think you're a nobody if you don't have any money, and that's just the way it is. It's like a cultural nuance, which is kind of sad because he is right. It's not all about money. You know, if you don't have happiness, then it doesn't matter. And so there wasn't any obvious religious references there. There was no father, no priest, no pastor, or whatever. And there was no prayers or anything like that. So this one wasn't really strong religious cultural nuance, nothing there. But most of the music in there, like in the taxi driver's cab, was really upbeat and happy, and it was mostly salsa music. They even played salsa music when they were at the mysterious man's house. So there was a lot of that influence on music and the happy culture. So, in conclusion, I learned a lot more terminology and was able to engage in everyday conversation with my friend Natalie and mi abuela. And that's pretty good because, you know, some of this stuff we're learning, I'm able to use in everyday conversation. So I can build conversation or learn new words through that. And I challenged myself with the Spanish movies because they were so fast paced and some of them were slang words, so I had to look them up. But overall, it was really good practice. So thanks for watching and adios.